Hi there, everyone. My name is Michael Buckingham. I'm the Senior School Academic Advisor, and I'm just going to run through this presentation on sort of 2021 VCE information. I've kind of just tried to highlight, probably watch this video if you're a student or you have a student who's in VCE or pre-VCE this year. So I just want to run through what sort of important policies and processes apply in VCE. What the college is doing to support your student and what you could do. I certainly think, if I were a parent, what would I like to know to be able to help my students? So later in the year, we will be doing another workshop as well. We're going to look a bit more closely at what is the structure of the VCE certificate. We're going to look at how sort of marks, study scores, ATARs are calculated, and what is an unscored pathway. Is that kind of appropriate for my student, as well as the difference between VCE and VCAL. So that's kind of not the focus of today. Today is really about sort of must-know information. Firstly, just a little bit about my role. I'm responsible for the academic progress of all students from years 10 to 12. So that's pre-VCE subjects, VCAL and VCE. Part of my role is very data-driven, so I'm constantly monitoring students' attendance, their coursework completion, their performance on SACs. I also manage all internal assessment. So in terms of the SAC process, SAC redemption, I conduct pathways interviews, course counselling, anything to do with student subjects or subject changes. It's also my responsibility to make sure that effective study skills are taught throughout the college. The exams, our own internal exams, as well as external VCE exams, and sort of major senior school events. I work quite closely with the heads of house who really sort of look after the well-being and engagement aspect of your student. So we do collaborate quite a lot. All over the media, we had some fantastic achievements in 2020. I think the number one achievement was that all of our students made it through. We're just so proud of them. Our average ATAR ended up being 72, which is phenomenal. Our median study score, which is kind of one of the main measures of VCE success, was actually 31. So that's up by 4 points. Just absolutely phenomenal jump in achievement. We had 3.8% of our students achieve a study score of over 40, which is, quite difficult to do. But we are aiming for 5%. So I think this is the year. And 14 out of our 16 students received their first preference for a tertiary institution. So we're really, really proud of our students as well as our staff for making this happen last year. But we're going to have a look at what we're going to be doing this year. Just a couple of key terms in case many of you will know this, some of you this is the first time. VCAR, the Victorian Curriculum and Assessment Authority. So they are the ones who actually write the courses, they lay out rules of how assessment should be administered. It's our responsibility as a college to implement their policies. When we talk about Units 1 or Units 2, now that's typically done in Year 11. Units 3 and 4 are typically in Year 12. And when we say the word SAC, it stands for School Assessed Coursework. These are sort of your major tests, major assessments. They can take many different forms. So in order for your student to get a satisfactory an S, at Year 11, that's the only thing that really gets entered into the system and goes towards their certificate, okay? Just they need to get an S for Unit 1 English, for example. In Units 3 and 4, students obviously aim to get an S, a satisfactory. So that goes towards their certificate, but they will also come out with other marks and scores. So in order to get a satisfactory grade for any one unit, a number of things have to line up. So I quite often explain to the students as the planets aligning. Obviously, their attendance, 90%. Now, as a parent, when you're on Compass, there's a number of different columns. You look under the VCE percentage, and that takes into account sort of school events and approved absences, stuff like that. So they have to be here 90% of the time. Authentication. So teachers need to be able to authenticate their work, make sure that the work is truly theirs and that there have been no undue breaches of VCAR standards. SACs as well, so the major assessments that students sit, they are an internal assessment organised and assessed by the teacher. SACs obviously have to be completed, they have to demonstrate the outcomes, and they have to have a minimum score of 50%. This is sort of a school policy, this 50% number. But we will talk about, what we can do if a student doesn't quite crack that threshold. Probably one of the more salient points is the fourth thing that has to line up is the coursework. That all coursework tasks that are uploaded to Compass have been completed and demonstrate the outcomes. So teachers will typically put up 4 coursework tasks, perhaps more, every reporting period, so every 6 weeks. They've got a really nifty little numbering system there, just so you can tell what's happening in what order. And they're designed to scaffold and prepare students for the SACs. But essentially, the coursework doesn't go anywhere. They are requirement, and teachers will mark it as either completed if it meets the outcomes, partially completed if it's a little bit more to go, or incomplete. All of those 4 things have to line up. A student could get 100% on their SACs, but if they're only here for 50% of the time, we can't actually say they've met the outcomes. Okay, same for they may have achieved really, really well in the SACs, but they haven't really done any coursework throughout the year. That could result in an N. That's obviously not what any of us want. In terms of supporting students, we obviously take a lot of care to make sure that students don't sit more than 2 SACs in any one day. It's just way too stressful. And then for them, they're also not going to perform at their best. So we coordinate amongst ourselves. We have a Sac Calendar published. So on Compass, you'll see under the star for school favourites, there's the 2021 Sac Calendar. All of semester 1 is up there and semester 2 is underway. Dates are kind of set in stone. They will appear on students' Compass schedules. The learning tasks will also have this as the due date. You may notice that on Wednesdays, we try and make use of those Wednesday period 4 sessions to actually run SACs. Just a little thing we do to try and maximize the use of class time so students have more face time with the teachers. So students have been advised sort of not to make plans on Wednesday afternoons because chances are they will have a SAC. Now, if a student is absent, typically it's only medical certificates that would be accepted. Obviously, given the COVID pandemic and our experience in 2020, we'll obviously accept COVID test results as in lieu of a medical certificate. Now, let's say that a student on their first attempt of the SAC does not quite meet the 50% minimum threshold. We have a process in place for to support students in redeeming this. So essentially what happens is if a student scores under 50%, the teacher will do one of 2 things. They will either give students a 2-week time frame to make sure that they've completed all the assigned coursework to help prepare them for that resit. The teachers may, if they feel it's appropriate for the student, they may assign 1 additional piece of compulsory coursework. So they might wish the student to have a face-to-face meeting with them where they talk through some of the errors. There might be, a whole range of things. But essentially it's the student either needs to finish off the work that should have been done, or the student is given an additional piece of work to better prepare them. We don't want students just having another chance and just hoping for the best. We want to actually support them in being able to show their outcome. Sac resets normally happen on a Friday afternoon from 3:30 to 4:30 p.m. The times are non-negotiable. The students are always emailed with at least 3 days warning, but I generally try and get ahead. If a student still after that reset does not meet their 50% minimum, they can then call a panel. We can, discuss kind of the reasons, what the difficulties they're having, and we can come up with a plan of how the student will be able to still receive a satisfactory. Quite typically, this is if a student on their second attempt is sort of not, achieving the 50% or above, talk about an unscored pathway and what's involved with that. The point of the story is that the story isn't over. We're very committed to making sure that students have any and every opportunity to satisfy the outcome. All of these policies are documented. Again, on Compass under favorites, there's a link to the VCE handbook. This is your one-stop shop. A summary of all the processes that we spoke about during today's video. It includes the VCAR rules, the rules that we have to abide by. Pretty predictable, must be your own work. You can't have undue assistance, but they're in there if you wish. because it is sort of the more serious aspect of my job is making sure that all assessment complies with these VCAR rules. And from time to time, there are instances where teachers do struggle to authenticate whether a student's work is indeed their own. In this situation, what we generally have is a breach of VCAR rules panel. So if there was a suspected breach, students would be notified in writing. We could say exactly what task, what subject, and which rule we believe has been broken. Students will be able to bring a support person, so that might be yourselves, but that support person is not able to advocate for the student. We want to give the student an opportunity to respond, to give their perspective, for the teachers to pose questions. On the panel, it's generally the principal, myself, the classroom teacher, and the head of house. The outcome of that panel could include reprimand, it could include resubmission. We kind of take into account the factors and the needs of the student. The panel will develop an outcome and the student will be informed and parent will be informed in writing. If they are unsatisfied with the outcome of the panel, you do have the right to lodge an appeal with VCAR within 14 days. I did just want to kind of run through what are some of the supports, the proactive supports that I suppose we have in place already. Most of our approach is about maximising learning time. So doing SACs outside of class time I think that's our number one strategy. It's just to maximise face-to-face time with your students and their teachers. We are running coursework support sessions, which I'll talk about in a moment. These are voluntary, and I'd really encourage you, if your student is struggling keeping up with coursework, to encourage them to attend. We are running senior mentoring this year. So all year 11s and year 12s will have a dedicated mentor, and year 10 students, in addition to mentoring, they also have a study skills session with yours truly and a few other staff once a fortnight. Year 12 students are taking part in coaching conversations with Carmel Nielsen, as well as Danny, the principal. We've done a lot of work in helping students to kind of develop and refine their own study plans. I quite often do a lot of mentoring work with a lot of students, just kind of helping them pick up the pieces and developing coursework action plans. So if they really are struggling to lift themselves out, that's certainly a big part of my role. We are doing sort of a senior school retreat and a senior school planning day, all about, sort of pathways and how to study effectively and what's sort of required at tertiary levels. So that's for year 11s. Year 12, independent study periods in the resource centre. They've got that available to help support them. And as a staff in the background, we're doing lots of professional development around. Just quickly on senior mentoring, so this is once a week. Your student will have a dedicated mentor, either Mr. Ben or Ms. Duong, Ms. Balagrove or Mr. Kilfoyle. And we're looking at a range of sort of wellbeing workshops as well that are appropriate for just senior students. So we do look at managing alcohol and drugs, sexual health and whatnot. But there's also quite a lot of sort of academic supports in there too. So we're looking at effective revision. We've already done some work on, how to build study timetables, preparation for the GAT, how to manage the stress of exams. So this is once a week and it's a really fantastic program. What are you already doing that could support your student, and what are a few other tricks that you could try to sort of better support your student? We are dealing with teenagers here, so certainly empathise. Actually have the conversations with your students about their weekly schedule. What's kind of coming up this week, next week? What are they not looking forward to? When you log into Compass, you can obviously see up here if a student has a Sac Reset or an event, or they'll actually come up on their Compass schedule as an event. There are also these orange banners at the top. On the schedule, will actually show when a particular coursework task or when a particular Sac is due that particular day. And obviously just encouraging students to sort of look ahead and plan backwards, because they will have quieter weeks, they will have busier weeks. You can obviously, as a parent, you can still monitor Compass, so you'll be able to see obviously their attendance, Quite often you're asked to sort of approve attendance if students miss a class. You're also able to monitor the coursework completion. So all the coursework that's documented up there, and it should be kind of a sea of yellow and green all marked as completed. So there is another video on how to use the Compass parent portal that might be useful if you'd like a bit of training in that. I would say as a parent, really try and reward and support regular routine. In year 12, what we're working towards is students to do 2 to 3 hours of study a night, plus 6 to 8 on a weekend. Obviously, slightly less for year 11 and slightly less again for year 10, but it's about getting students into healthy and positive and predictable routines. Now, study obviously starts with dealing with essential coursework and homework that's set. But quite often, students will get to a point where I've completed everything. That is the time where homework ends and study kind of ends. And we do a lot of work with students in, learning that study is on your own terms. It's something that you choose to do, how to study effectively, how to go over, what's been done on today's lessons and over the last week, revisiting old topics. Certainly, I noticed, assisting in whatever ways you can to help get your student here to school on time. Especially for period one, sometimes, late arrivals, they do add up and cost a lot of valuable learning time. Support in helping students locate private study spaces. They may have a dedicated space in the home, but a lot of our students, especially after lockdown, are really benefiting from having a third place, somewhere that is not school, that is not home. So public libraries, the state library is often quite busy, but yeah, helping students in actually choosing a sort of a third space where they can use to study. Encouraging students to take up every opportunity. There's a lot of non-compulsory but optional supports here at school, certainly getting them to put their hands up for it, as well as engaging with the classroom teachers through student-led conferences. A couple of other sort of more specific strategies that you may not have necessarily tried with your student. One of them would be, it's really easy for classroom teachers to negotiate extensions for these coursework tasks. If your students start falling behind a little bit, I would really encourage them to, either by email or in person, negotiate some extensions for their overdue coursework tasks. So they could say, all right, I think I can get this one in by Friday, that one by Monday week. Teachers 9 out of 10 times will say, excellent, yes, let's do it, approved. And they'll actually change it on Compass and no harm done. So I'd really encourage your students to reach out either by email or in person, and teachers are more than willing to negotiate. If students insist, I dare say you've probably heard, I have nothing to do, I'm on top of everything. Look against Compass and you say, all right, there is a whole bunch of outstanding coursework tasks. Students can actually submit the link to their work via Compass. So if there are a whole lot of reds overdue and the student says, I've done it, they can actually submit it themselves. You may wish to ask your student, all students from year 10 through to year 12 have actually developed a study plan, just like what's in this document here. So you might ask the students, can you show me, like, when are you planning to actually do your study? We have a whole lot of physical calendars in this digital world. Quite often, something really simple and tangible is really helpful to students. So probably the last piece of advice is, quite often it's students who don't have a clear goal of what they want at the end of senior school. Probably those that are a bit more likely to get lost. Unless students sort of have a clear goal of, right, I need to get these results, I want to do this straight after school, this is my backup plan. If they need a bit of support and assistance in doing that, I certainly encourage them to get in contact with Alison Lovett. She's a fantastic support to our students. I do hope that you found something in this video useful. We will, of course, be doing a live Q&A on Zoom. So if you do have any questions, please write them down, log on to the Zoom, and I'll see you then.